Hey everybody, this is Keith Hancock alongside with my longtime industry pal, Christine DeVita.
And welcome to another episode of Behind the Counter.
Christine, how are you? Coming off the heels of having some great guests. We have some more lined up, but tonight they got to deal with just me and you, but you know, that's always good company. At least I know you are. How are you doing this tonight?
I'm doing good, Keith. How are you?
Good. I like your outfit. I like your hat.
Thank you. You look like you remind me of a lumberjack right now.
Yeah, I know. I feel like a little lumberjackish tonight. Well, really, I got the Carhartt hat on, a nice flannel shirt. You know, I figure.
I'm not gonna lie, it's a look for you. I kind of like it.
Thank you. You know, I'm thinking. What really inspired me last night was when Rich, our recruiter, sent us that video of his fire pit. You know, and I was like, I just felt like it got me feeling like real manly and rustic, I guess would be the best way to put it. But, you know, I'm very moody. I mean, next week I could have a goddamn fedora with a friggin' feather sticking out the side. You just never know. And a monocle.
I think weekly you should showcase different hats.
I'm gonna dress up. I think that's a good idea. I'm going to dress up like Mr. Peanut next week. We'll see how that goes for everybody.
So what do we have in store for this week?
So for tonight, we got some good things. You know, as much as I wanted to go and not make this a show about news and, you know, as we were talking, to me, or politics, those things come into play. And we talk about different subjects, marketing and things like that. But I don't want to be just any flat podcast, basically. You know, so I think the news is the way to go. What do you think? Keeping everybody up to date on industry stuff?
It's a hot topic. Everybody's on top of the news now, especially with this pandemic and the current presidency and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, unfortunately, the news is the news, and it's what's hot out there. So why not cover it?
At the end of the day, we thought we'd see a big influx of staffing in our industry, and we haven't quite really seen that. At least not from what I'm seeing from people that we've talked to, from the recruiting end of our business. I'm surprised and not surprised at the same time. It's a combination of a couple things that we're finding is people have either left and gone to different industries during the pandemic, or they just haven't spent much money and they're still not ready. They've gotten used to the sit-at-home life, or they're doing like what we call gig work now and things like that. But at the end of the day, the industry is still getting pounded on not getting talent, although it is opening up. There's a lot of things that's causing harm for that.
Gig work is a big thing now.
I hate the term. I don't know why.
I don't like it either, but it is what
it is.
Gig
work to me equals lazy, no future, no benefits job. That's just what I think of gig work. Like, that's just what I hear. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting old and cranky.
Listen, I mean, look at the feedback that we got months ago, right? That I was seeking advice from somebody who worked for my father, remember?
Yeah.
And he had said, you guys need to establish marketing, PR, so on and so forth for DeVita and Hancock.
Right.
And he basically told me, do not outright hire anybody.
Right.
Go on to different types of websites and go find people, create your team, basically, and subcontract it out.
100%.
Or contract it out. And I think that's great.
I agree.
I agree. And this is where the future of all this stuff is now, is contracting out the work instead of having your own staff.
Exactly. And that's right. And those things make sense, but some of the gig work is like, I don't know, it's like catering out of their kitchen and stuff like that, which kudos to anybody who wants to do anything, you know? But I guess that I'm just kind of like, I guess I'm old school in some regard.
You know what it is? Gig workers back in the day for us were servers and bartenders and people in our industry looking for part-time work.
True.
Right?
Very true.
That's what I attribute the gig worker type of individual to. Now it's evolved so much that it's just a career now.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I think it's easier for people to find work and find stability in doing that because now everything is very remote now, obviously because of the pandemic.
Well, that has changed.
Yeah. And I think it's just a new way of doing things. I mean, if you think about it, right, some of what we do is gig work.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
You know, on the other side of our business, it's gig work.
Yeah.
You know, it's just another term for what we do with our other business.
Right.
But other than that, the unemployment, I could have sworn that once the unemployment had ended, the floodgates was going to open up for people wanting to go back to work. Obviously, I was completely
Yep.
wrong about that.
Because they did go into, they went into other things. And real quick, on the flip side, not to knock anybody for what they do, because that's not my intention, you're a peek into how my brain works. Part of me says that stuff, and then an hour later, I'm looking at them, and I'm like, maybe they're just actually fucking smarter than I am. To be honest with you, part of my like maybe I did it all wrong, and maybe they got it figured out. I don't know, but we're gonna find out as time progresses. But anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. What were you saying?
No, it's just I was completely wrong. I mean, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. But the job markets, jobs have opened up. Restaurants are looking to staff, mm-hmm. and we just can't find anybody now.
Right.
So it's more on the hourly employee side than it is on the manager and upside. You know what I'm saying? So these hourly employees just don't want to work in the restaurant industry anymore. Quite honestly, do I blame them? No, not really. Look what they're faced with on a daily basis now.
Right.
Look what happened at Carmine's, and that's just one restaurant.
Right.
Right. So you have a hostess getting beat up because she asked for a vaccine card.
Right.
You have these 17 to 20 something year olds being put, in front of what I call the front lines of something that they just don't have the wherewithal to handle.
Right.
And that's police customers, police guests, look at vaccine cards, enforce mask mandates, while the managers are, roaming around running their organization. And I just think that it's too much for them to handle, and I don't blame them. But on the flip side, I'm aggravated by it because, this rent industry has been through so much at this point. Mm-hmm. We just need to get back to full staff, execution, make some money, and deliver a great product. And that's just not happening right now.
Right. And then you have, forget about the staffing. And staffing doesn't just play into a server waiting on you in a restaurant or a cook sauteing, chicken marsala in the kitchen. It stems to the whole progression of how we get that food to your place. So we're supply chain, product, things, correct, getting things out to the restaurant. All of that stuff has really been kind of hurting. And we're still waiting to see what they're going to do. I know in Los Angeles, they opened up the ports 24 hours. They made those negotiations there. I don't really know what that's going to do or what type of impact that's going to have on that feeling. I don't have a strong emotion towards that. That's going to solve much of the problem.
I don't think it is.
And not just to put the problem on, the current government in the United States. It's a global problem. There's supply chain issues everywhere, but I think that there's certainly a lot of things we could have done better to be in a better position today. Also, with these supply chain issues, which is hurting the industry, you have your staffing, supply chain, reduced menus and things like that. Restaurants having to work with vendors to try to get the food in the place. They have food just not showing up, or they have to make accommodations where they can only get one delivery a week. And then sometimes a lot of those things that they get, they have to substitute out for inferior product. So, because that's all they have to offer, not the brand that they want to buy. So it's really hurting the operation overall of the restaurant industry. And there's a lot of things that are happening that when people dine, they still need to, be cognizant of those things. The restaurant's not always going to have what you want.
Correct.
Burger King might actually run out of hamburgers one day. You got to get the chicken sandwich. You never know.
Imagine that. Imagine that.
Yep.
But seriously, restaurants are closing now.
Right. Closing.
Because they don't have the staff. And I think that's horrible.
Shutting down for lunch.
They're closing because they don't have the staff. They're reducing the menu offerings. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Costs are just out of control. And it's just a snowball of just ridiculousness right now.
Right.
I really didn't think it was going to get this bad in 2021. 2020 was a horror show.
Yep.
And 2021 is proving to be just as much as a horror show as 2020 was with this industry.
For sure. I was reading in the Wall Street Journal that Procter & Gamble is only going to be selling bulk items like you would get at Costco. Because it's actually easier for them to, for a while, it's actually easier for them to just manufacture, and they're just telling you buy it in bulk, we're only selling it in bulk.
Well, now you go to the grocery store, you go to Costco, you go to Restaurant Depot. Now you're limited on how much you can buy now. So it's back to 2020 again.
Yeah, which makes no sense to me. But that, honestly, I blame us for that. Quite to be some of it. The supply chain, yes, there's issues with that, but you shouldn't be hoarding. I mean, if 2020 taught us anything, we don't need to hoard. because
You don't. What are you going to do with that much toilet paper?
right,
That's what I want to know.
right. I was just down in the basement of my house. We have like a little pantry thing looking at it. We got one of those big Costco things, and that has probably been sitting
Yeah,
there for 2 months now. It's been sitting
exactly.
down there. We still got half the thing.
I want to know what you're doing with all of the toilet paper,
Hmm.
olive oil, vegetable oil, water. Water, I get.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
Canned goods, dry goods. Where
Yeah,
are you going?
I'm a water snob. I only drink bottled water. Period. End of story.
Right? And then now Costco is bringing back purchase limits on toilet paper, cleaning supplies, and more now.
No, glad I don't have
It's
kids. I
just
guess.
absolutely ridiculous. You know,
Glad I don't have kids.
absolutely crazy. I mean, listen, I love Costco, right?
Uh huh.
But none of this makes sense.
Right. So it is what it is. It's going to continue to be this way. We just got to buckle down and deal with it, just like we have. At the end of the day, we're strong people.
Absolutely.
So back to growing a multi-unit brand, the world that we come from, the world that a lot of our listeners that I speak to also are in and also come from. So, they might find this interesting. I'd be curious to hear their feedback in regards to what they think. But one thing I found is that when I first got into this business, growing a chain was kind of taboo in the early 90s because chain was
Yes.
McDonald's. It's like, I don't want to
Yep.
do that. I'm going into this business for the passion of the industry, and I'm going into the business because I want to be a chef and blah, blah, blah. And everybody thought that dining, that working in the restaurant business was going to be like being a friggin' celebrity until they realized that it's not like that at all. And then the Food Network got big, and then it gave everybody that impression again. And now it seems like everybody who goes into this business with wanting to own, they just want to be rich. So everybody wants to have the next McDonald's rather than turn away from it. Maybe not that kind of food, but I'm talking like, what brands can I grow and have 100 of them? Everybody that we speak to, Christine, every client, whether they have one, except for our friend out in Long Island, because he's a banquet hall guy who runs a great place.
Oh yeah.
But like
Yes.
everybody that we speak to, they're all going to be the next TGI Fridays. I don't know anybody right now that doesn't own a single unit something. They're not going to be, I'm the next whatever this is, and they compare themselves to
Listen,
that.
I'm here to tell you guys,
Mm-hmm.
it's 85% failure rate.
Yeah.
85% failure rate. We know this because we're consultants in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
85, and I'm being generous,
Right.
85% failure rate with new concepts.
Right.
Trust us when we tell you we've been on that side of the fence, right,
Mm-hmm.
Keith?
Right. We have.
Brands taking a single concept and growing it, whether it's in New York or
Mm-hmm.
wherever else, right? It's a very, very, very tough
So hard.
process.
So hard. I was having the conversation with somebody the other day. Like, you look at I actually don't want to mention a brand name, but we were talking about this, and I was like, it's average, but it boils down to some marketing. You got to have marketing because people fall in.
Remember, you got to give me a hint. Who was it?
Who was I talking to? No, I didn't say to guess. You don't know the person.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, no,
Oh,
I said
thought-
I was talking to somebody. Yeah.
Oh,
And I
okay.
was like, we were talking about a brand, but I was like, it's good product. I said, but because he was asking me, he's like, why do people like this when I can go to this place and buy the same thing and it's like 10 times better and they have 2 locations and they got 500? I said, half of it's marketing. They fall in love with the brand. It's about, so like one key thing. So back to those who want to do it. Listen, we're not saying not to try it. Go for it. Maybe you got bigger.
Yes.
Brasser, than we do for wanting to do it. Just like the gig workers. Maybe you got bigger brasser for doing that than I do. Maybe I'm a little tired, or maybe I'm just an asshole. I don't know. One or the other. Probably more the latter for saying what I said. Probably more of an asshole. But
I can't.
But really, like, go for it. But it's going to be risky. But the number one thing, so to give some advice, that I would say that if you're going to grow a multi-unit brand, I think you got to get people to fall in love with the brand themselves and get some emotional attachment, which was actually something that we always reference. That I remember a lot of companies did this, but Pret was big into eat with your eyes.
Yes.
Remember that? Love the brand.
And look at their whole decor package.
Right.
The whole decor package was just so captivating.
Right.
And you walked in and there was a freaking beet with 2 eyeballs and hair.
Right.
And it was all made out of, it was just the art around the food was amazing.
Right.
But Pret was smart because when they came to the United States, to New York City,
Mm-hmm.
right? Pret had its original London menu.
It did.
And they realized that
nobody
Americans
wanted to eat almonds and curry on bread.
It's not that. It was the mayonnaise. Americans do not have mayonnaise on every single sandwich. We don't eat mayonnaise. I think there's like 3 things we'll have mayonnaise on.
Right.
A chicken cutlet sandwich from a deli, right? Turkey,
right,
and tuna. A tuna salad or an egg salad, something like that.
right.
But I remember every single baguette or sandwich had mayo on it, and they didn't do well in the beginning.
Right.
They shut down a lot of stores, and then they realized through feedback from their customers and so on and so forth, it was an ingredient thing, and they were smart.
Right.
They listened to their customers and they did the switch.
But they also, you got to remember, they had their branding down to a T. Remember what they did? They wanted, like, when you walked out of that store holding that prep bag, it was supposed to be the same thing as if you were walking around the shopping mall holding a Versace bag.
Correct.
And that's
correct.
And that's the biggest thing to grow a multi-unit brand. If you don't have that kind of loyalty, if people don't have that kind of emotional attachment towards you, you're already dead in the water. You might be able to get by with a great product in a local area. Yes. Maybe, but you're not going to grow into a multi-unit brand.
Look who we were talking about today, right? We were talking about a burger concept. We're not going to name we're not going to name the concept, but a burger concept, right? Yep. Remember the conversation earlier today about?
Oh yeah, they were franchising, and then yes.
They were franchising, and everybody, you would think, bringing this big burger concept to New York, it would work.
Full bar and all that stuff.
Full bar, everything, right? And it just didn't work. And they wound up closing in New York State, like a ridiculous amount of locations.
Right.
But in any other state, they're doing great.
Right.
Even their Coney Island location, they couldn't keep open.
That's the one that I went to.
Oh, really?
No.
I don't even know if their Coney Island location is open. I know that their Port Jeff location is closed. Their Deer Park location is closed. Yep. I mean, they tried, God bless them. But, it's a New England brand, great brand, but it's, for some reason, it just did not work in New York. It's sad because I love the concept.
Right. And don't forget, too, what goes into number 2 is don't franchise to scumbags. Because that was also the other thing that hurt them. Remember, we knew people that worked there, and they didn't pay their people.
That was all over the news.
Right.
That was crazy.
Right.
And they even put an episode in their reality show regarding the Brooklyn location. How one of the owners had to go down there and reassure everybody that they were going to take care of them.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Because these franchise owners, man, it's a 50-50 shot. You either have a great franchise group that knows what they're doing and follows like the core of what the brand and the concept is.
Right.
Or then you just have these franchise guys that just do whatever they want and utilize the decor package and the branding to just throw money in the bank.
Right.
And they completely desecrate it.
So
and it's horrible.
So if you're going into bed with a franchisee in regards to giving a franchise, you got to do like you're hiring them. You got to make sure they have X amount of dollars in the bank. And you would think some of this, I guess to us, it's common sense because we've dealt with it and we've helped grow brands. But that's just some things that people don't think of. You got to make sure they got a certain amount of capital in the bank, do background checks, see what you're dealing with, because they might just be a tiny microcosm in your big wheel that you're spinning. But at the end of the day, they could destroy your big wheel.
Exactly.
And that's the mentality you got to have. And that can take out. And it hasn't happened so much. Well, it did happen to Jack in the Box, which initially happened in the 70s. They had an E. coli outbreak. I'll say that because that's very common knowledge, especially to industry people. And they bounced back from it. And I actually like eating at Jack in the Box. They got burgers and tacos under the same roof. I mean, if you're drunk, that's the place to go.
I can't.
Did you ever go to one? When I went to Vegas, I went to Vegas when I was 19. I think we hit Jack in the Box up like 3:30 in the morning, like 4 nights a week.
Wow.
It was crazy.
Wow.
So their food's good and they bounced back. But that's the hard lesson is it was a franchisee that did that to them, Yeah. And they could have been McDonald's because they were growing at the same time. So just be careful who you do business with. Do your research because they could make you look bad. Don't think it's going to be like you're going to open up 3 of your own locations. You're going to have a great product and then you're just going to have franchisees and you're going to build your brand off of the backs of their finances and everything's going to be gravy. It's going to be a pain in the neck. And then if you get the right person and they have the right money and they have the right character and integrity behind them, you still have to go and constantly enforce the consistency that they're delivering the product that the people expect, because the people don't know who owns a McDonald's when they walk into it or a Dunkin' Donuts. even though
you have no
there's
idea if
hundreds
it's corporate
of
or
people.
franchise owned.
Right.
Right.
So, they got to be giving you the same thing. And that's something that I think that we find a lot of times as we've grown, people lose sight of that.
Yeah,
I know, Christine,
definitely.
you worked for a brand early on. I'm not going to say the name, that's your call, but I remember, I remember you working for that. What would you say hurt that brand?
Yeah, so that brand, that was a London-based brand.
Okay.
I got hired, Keith, to head up the operations in the United States. So I was vice president of business development operations for this brand, and they wanted to take the concept and bring it across the pond.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an eye opener.
Mm.
That was the second, I guess, launch that I've been involved in my career with getting something off the ground. Even though it had a great reputation overseas, the market, being the United States, was very difficult to kind of break into. New York City being obviously the toughest because, it's so brand saturated in New York City. And it was an eye opener on both my end and the CEO / owner's end. He was, great guy, brilliant, but he also felt that he could stand in the middle of Times Square and say, I'm here, and expect the following that he had overseas. And in New York or in the United States, you have PR companies, you have marketing companies. You just have so many things behind the scenes, stuff that goes on with launching a brand and making people notice it and see it, that he did not feel that he needed to spend money in.
Right.
And the brand ultimately, we had 2 pop-ups, opened up 2 locations.
They had really good product, by the way, though.
They did.
I got to give that to them. I stopped in there.
Let me tell you something. It really, if I could call up and place an order, I would place an order now and just get like cases delivered to my house. It was amazing.
Well, just to comment on what you said, stand in Times Square, as you know, I spent a good bulk of my career there. And just to say this to anybody who, whether they want to open up one thing or anything, that is not the restaurant field of dreams. Just because you build it does not mean they're going to come. It is actually a harder market than you would probably think to build up into.
Yes.
Absolutely. People just have that. Because I worked for a concept there, the last one I worked in, and I remember them, their brand had been there for a while and it was dying, and they brought in people who didn't know the market. They hired me because I knew the market to rebuild the two restaurants, and they were just like, I don't understand. I was like, what you guys don't understand is just because there's 100,000 people outside doesn't mean they're all coming here. You still got it. And they thought it was going to be a turn and burn. We'll just, slap food out and people will just come. And that's not the case. There's actually a brand loyalty that's involved when you work in those markets and things like that too. But that could be a whole nother topic, not to get off of what we're going with. Well,
you know what? There was another company that I was involved with, and they grew really fast. It was just that was there's no words for that. But what I'm trying to get with that experience is that if you're not in the restaurant business, you've never worked in the restaurant business, just because you're sitting on a mountain full of cash does not mean you have the right to open up a restaurant.
I'm a big Sopranos fan.
Yes.
Even go to Sopranos Con because I'm that kind of Sopranos dork. But
you're you're obsessed.
But hey, you've been watching it. I think you mentioned it the other week, so.
I am. I'm up to season 4 right now.
The Wait, season 4. That's one of my favorite episodes. But I love the chef, Artie Bucco. He made a comment that I've used it. He's like, just because you know how to eat doesn't mean you know how to run a restaurant.
Exactly.
And that's one of my favorite comments from that show because it's so true.
Well, you know what? You know what I heard when I was a employee for TGI Fridays, right? And I would bartend, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm ready to be a manager, right? We went through that whole story episodes ago.
Yep, I remember.
GM turned around to me and said, just because you're a bartender and can hold down a Friday and Saturday night with no issues,
right?
And you could manage your other bartenders, and you could manage your money and inventory and all of that, does not mean you could be a manager.
Right.
And you know what? She was right.
Right.
Not in my case, but in other cases. Because people, when you're with TGI Fridays, you're a bartender, and then boom, the next step is you're the hostess manager or the busboy manager. That's the next step.
Right.
And bartenders, amazing bartenders. Some of them just can't be managers, and that goes back to the Artie Bucco comment.
Well, some people can sell Chevys, some people can't manage the showroom. It's the same type of thing.
Do you remember when we first opened back in 2018, right? Mm-hmm. Do you remember our first consulting gig?
Cape the Pot guy? Oh, yes. No, the other. I was thinking of the Korean, what do you call that? Hot pot restaurant.
Yes.
Him.
The hot pot. Yes. The guy was a pharmacist at CVS.
We talked him out of it. Tell you what,
we did.
Let's get this podcast out to him. He should listen to it. That's real proof that we're not scumbags, because we could have taken him for thousands and walked away with it.
I could have bought my Range Rover that year.
Let's toot our own horn.
Made off of him.
Beep, beep.
But seriously, we saved him. We saved his life. That's all we did, was we saved his life, because we literally sat there.
And his $250,000 inheritance.
And we talked him out of it, because he basically turned around to us and said, I'm going to give you all this money. Mm-hmm. I want you to create my concept, deal with the landlord, staff me, write my recipes, like from soup to nuts. He wanted it all done.
Yeah.
But he wanted that guarantee that he was going to be successful in 2 years.
Yeah.
And that's when I turned around to you and I said, we cannot do this right now.
Yeah. My mother put me in Sunday school for a reason. There's no, I don't want to have to go see the priest and confess that one. What you do? I destroyed a person's life. No, we would never do that anyway. But it's.
Yeah, that was our first client. See, and speaking of which, guess what's coming up in 8 days? What?
Our anniversary of when we opened.
It's our 3-year anniversary.
And
very excited about that.
So, but I'll tell you, he is a guy though that if he was to come back with us. So on the flip side, for successful franchises, there is a growing popularity of multi-unit franchises, not just to build them, but more people that are going into the food service industry are getting steered towards, let me buy this brand rather than create my own. So you see the two sides of it. So if Hot Pot Guy, and I honestly hate to say I don't remember his name, so he's going to be Hot Pot Guy, was to call us.
And say he wants guy.
And say, hey, I had $250,000. 3 years have gone by. I did really well. I bought it at the right time in 2020 in the mid-March, and now I have $750,000. I might turn around and say, you know what, we got to start looking at franchises for you. Because if you're somebody who is going into that, they'll treat you like you're almost a manager in training. They put franchisees almost through like Burger University or Taco University or Hot Pot University. And they give you the tools. So if you do and you have the capital, you're almost better off going that route. But that's where you would need someone like us to guide you into the viable brands, because there's lots of 20, 25 unit concepts out there and they're just not ready to franchise, or their brand just isn't going to stick and they'll be gone in a year. We've seen it happen. So Christine, as you know, we've talked about some bad examples in regards to what not to do's for a multi-unit operation. We have good examples too, and there's lots of people who are successful. And I think the passion that you and I both share isn't just about the dollar, but it's about helping brands grow and seeing them win. One group that we worked with, if you remember, we went back in January. They were looking for a director of operations. They wanted to go on. They wanted to go on their own and look for somebody, which makes sense. We said we wished them the best of luck. They found somebody. During that time, I've dined in their place many times because their product is amazing. I don't know how many locations they have now, but it'll probably be double a year from now. Their product is so good.
Amazing.
So they came, we saw they were looking again. We approached them a second time and they decided to sign with us. And we got lucky to work with them, and it's been a real pleasure. And
it was an immediate hire for them too. And we filled it in 2.5, 3 weeks.
Yeah, that one went pretty easy. So we got him 2 director of operations, I think, right?
Because we placed 2 DOs with them, and we weren't even looking to place 2 DOs. No. We just presented them with 2 really, really great candidates, and they couldn't pass up either one of them. Mm-hmm. And they wound up hiring them both, which I think is amazing.
Which is why they're going to be successful. Because,
exactly. And they have great products.
Multi-unit brands might, they'll have 2 great people, but they'll only hire 1. And they're like, no, we're not going to nickel and dime this. When you have to have the right people aligned with your vision, and they recognize that. So they're going to go a little heavy on the people to grow their vision, which makes complete sense. complete sense.
Absolutely. And you know what? And it was a pleasure to work with them
Mm-hmm.
because they are extremely organized with their interview process.
Right.
They know exactly what they want. And our recruiter literally had an amazing time with them. He wants to work with them again.
Mm-hmm.
And, they're now staffed up. They could run their business. They have 2 DOs that could run. I think they have about 16 or maybe 18 locations across the U.S. Never mind what's overseas. And now they have the manpower to go ahead and move forward with the brand. And, I'm excited that we were able to be a part of that to help them grow and, become stable
Mm-hmm.
and, get the people into place that they need to, to oversee their operations. So good job to Rich for the placements. Good job to him.
Good job, Rich. There'll be 36 units by next year because of the mentality that they have towards their people.
Absolutely. But yeah, definitely a great story.
Cool.
But listen, so, hot pot guy, right? We talked out of business, okay? And we saved his life and his life savings.
Right.
But we have a lot of good success stories, I guess, last year, right? With helping businesses stay open through the pandemic.
Absolutely.
My God. I mean, because for us, I think it was more personal than it was anything else because it's where we live. It's the tri-state area. It's Long Island, right?
And it's our business.
I think for us, exactly. It's the industry that afforded us this right now.
Right.
It afforded us DeVita and Hancock, behind the counter, salted. All of our experience came from this industry.
My house,
and I think
all that stuff.
Your house, my Beamer. What? But we helped a lot of businesses in New York City and Long Island.
Right.
And, we helped them. We kind of eased the stress for them. We helped them navigate through the pandemic to keep their doors open, having helped them generate different revenue streams, right, to bring in more money. And I think, I think we have the good and the bad, but it's more good than us turning away a client.
Absolutely.
Because we didn't want to take his money. But, that's what I wanted to point out.
Cool.
But I also wanted to point out something. I'm reading in the news, right, that, you have these vaccine mandates now that these companies are, which, I have a huge problem with, right? How they're mandating these vaccines. People are losing their jobs. Companies can't function. Look at the airlines, okay, just as one example, because that's current right now. But it's also hitting the industry as well, right? So, my question now to everybody out there is when did the CEOs get to play fake doctors?
Right. And politicians.
When did they get to play fake doctors? What happened to the core responsibilities of being a a CEO? Right. So, you play fake doctor and fake politician, but you don't realize what you're doing to the employees, right? So as a parent now, you have to come home and tell your significant other that you've lost your job, you have children, you have a mortgage, you have food you need to put on a table, and a CEO who's sitting there in some C-suite with his feet up, right, is playing doctor and pretty much determining whether you're able to support your family or not based on whether you're going to get a vaccine or not. Now, the Delta Airlines CEO...
And don't forget mayors.
And mayors. The Delta Airlines CEO, I believe he did it the right way. And I put it on my LinkedIn. I put it on my social media. I celebrated him because he went about it the right way. Okay? He had a solution to an ongoing issue in this world. And he never mandated it. He never told his employees that they were going to get fired. Right? So again, my question is, who out there gave these CEOs titles of fake doctors? Like, how are you determining what your employees should put in their bodies or not put in their bodies? Because as a CEO, right, there's core competencies, characteristics, and responsibilities that we need to follow. Okay. And it's very simple. And I'm going to put them out there because apparently you all forgot about them. Okay. It's flexibility. It's honesty, changes according to the situation, encouraging initiatives, value-driven decision-making, delegating, integrity, leadership by example, clear vision, and humility.
Yeah.
And it's important. And those are just the basic CEO characteristics, core competencies, and responsibilities. I mean, leadership styles are very flexible because there's no fixed traits that any CEO should exhibit, right? And it all depends on the situation. And something like this, it hurts, it bothers me that, people have to go home and, lose their jobs because of something so absolutely ridiculous.
Right. And, and with that, I'm pro-vaccine, but not for the mandates, just never have been. So, all through the process for me, it has really not been much of an issue because I was like, I'm willing to do it. But I definitely felt the other side to the coin when it was like, because I have the Moderna shot. And they were like, well, the FDA approves that you can mix the booster shot. And I was like, I'm going to get the booster shot, but you can mix your ass. Like, I don't give a shit what you say. The booster will be Moderna, just like the vaccine was, period, end of story. It's not up for discussion with me.
Right, but I want to make a point to me talking about the Delta CEO, right? Mm-hmm. So he ditches the COVID vaccine mandate. I mean, and I applaud him 1,000%, but he also has 90% employee vaccine rate. So he did something right.
Right.
Okay, he didn't force it. He did something right. And I think that is the best way to go about it.
Right. I agree.
So that's all I have to say.
Heard on that. And with that, I think that brings us to the end of our time today, Christine. It was a pleasure, as always, speaking to you.
Absolutely. Just so you guys know out there, we're still accepting Cove Hole of the Week submittals for our logo.
We need it.
There's a $300 gift card for the winner. You know what? Scratch that whole thing because you got to do Cove Hole of the Week.
Yeah, my Cove Hole of the Week, I didn't have one, but it's going to be people in power that enforce vaccine mandates. What do you think?
All right. So can we edit all that out, Kian? Okay, cool. All right. So, Keith, this brings us to a close of the episode, but you need to deliver the Cove Hole of the Week.
Drum roll. Cove Hole of the Week is people in power who aren't doctors that want to enforce vaccines onto people without any medical background to do so. Those are the Cove Holes of the Week. I haven't bumped into any or read of any this week, unfortunately. With that, before Christine talks about, or I'll talk about, we need someone to draw a damn picture of what a Cove Hole is. So we need submittals on our website. But with that, if you come across somebody and you have a good Cove Hole story, like if you see some jackoff at your local Dunkin' Donuts put his fist through plexiglass, which does happen, or scream at somebody because, scream at an employee because they tell them to wear a mask, please email us the story. We'll feature you. We will send you your very own personal DeVita and Hancock Cove Hole Destroyer t-shirt. I got one. I wish I had the thing. I'm looking for it. I don't have the shirt with me.
Well, it's vintage because it's got the old logo.
Right. You're going to have the new logo. I'm sorry. You'll have the new logo Cove Hole t-shirt.
Yes.
We'd love to hear stories of things that you witness, read about, or hear about in regards to Cove Hole.
That's great. So, guys, if you have a Cove Hole of the Week, submit it to connect@dhhospitalitygroup.com and get your free Cove Hole, what's it called? Cove Hole Destroyer?
Cove Hole Destroyer t-shirt.
Yeah, t-shirt. Well, we're going to make them baseball jerseys, so it's going to be pretty cool. Okay, we're still accepting Cove Hole of the Week submittals for our logo. There's a $300 gift card for the winner. We've gotten a lot of submittals already, but we're going to run this till November 1st. And then announce the winner and showcase the logo. Again, thank you guys for listening to Behind the Counter. Please follow us and subscribe on Instagram and YouTube. Visit our website at dhhospitalitygroup.com. And thank you for listening and have a great week.